Hello everybody, welcome back. So I thought I'd have a quick look at the situation going on with AI. So that this is, I suppose, like not that I go on YouTube much, but it's a bit of a random call really from me. I don't know what drew me to it initially. I suppose just flicking around, looking around certain charts, and then the idea that this one did such big moves, and even in the downtrend popped up as well quite dramatically. So there was a few things that appealed to me on the chart. The main thing was that when I was getting in on this, I recognised that there was a strong support around between 2 and 2.2 cent, and which is where I was mainly getting in, and then that broke down. And I held on because I called this that coins like this, especially with Kucoin, it's screw it money. So you have to be prepared to lose. But I didn't sell, even though I probably if it was large amounts, very large amounts of money, I probably would have definitely have sold at a loss. But then revisiting the chart, once it broke down, we have this descending trend line here, which represents essentially the consolidation, and the consolidation, being over and us being out of it, lending itself to the idea that this is an accumulation phase, even though we're below that major area of 2 cent, basically 2 to 2.2 cent. And it's worked out so far okay. Now this again, I have to stress, still is screw it money. And as much as I'd like to see this chart fully reverse, it might not. This might just be a little pinprick of a pump, which just gets sold off into the depths of hell. So you have to be aware of that, right? So as good as this looks, and as amazing as it might appear that I called something that no one else has even bothered mentioning. Because there's nothing to mention. Let's face it. It was screw it money. It was a gamble, and I put it out there as soon as I mentioned it on the Telegram. I said I went out and made a video to explain to everybody that there is a gamble. This is extremely high risk stuff, and obviously today it looks okay. It's gone on to make new, not new highs. Obviously got a long way to go for that, but it's showing, and it has shown over the last few days, at least since my last video, where I recognised that we were really going into a change of behaviour. We are going into a change of behaviour. Before we go into the 4-hourly chart, though, just to let you know, until we break out and get outside of this outside of this cloud, and not only outside of the cloud, but we want a Chiku span to be outside of the cloud as well. There's a few areas of this chart which we would like to see change in order for us to really gain more momentum, more signals for this to perk up. Now, just like any Kucoin chart, it can just shoot up and then crack back down again. That's just what happens with these sort of things. No rhyme or reason to some of these pumps, I have to say. But I'm more on the lines of momentum and strength of momentum, and this is something that this has got going for it at the moment. So out of its lows here, we reclaimed the 50 exponential, re-tagged it. That's great. Nice big pump up and a retest of it. So moving averages at this stage have been flipped. Prior to this, they were being rejected all the way down. Since we broke down from the 2 cent zone, we found that the moving averages were being respected. Unfortunately, for the in a case of bears rather than bulls, and so when we reclaimed that, a retest of it was a pretty bullish thing. Move up, retest. Now we reclaimed and retested the 200 exponential on the 4-hourly, gained our golden cross, gone from strength to strength, but it's actually very, very, very strong. And still remains strong. It is still strong. So the 4-hourly still looks pretty good, and there's no real aspect of that isn't good. I mean, it's a bit extended, but it's pretty good. 6-hourly now forming a golden cross as well. So I said this on the last video when we got the 4-hourly golden cross. Golden crosses are great, and they're not signals in themselves. They're just showing that the strength of a trend is gaining more momentum. That's all it is. And so when people treat golden crosses as a signal, they shouldn't be ever treated as a signal. They're just a sign of strength. That's all it is, and it doesn't mean that it can't be retested. Naturally, we see that they get retested a lot of the time. It's very common to get a dump into a golden cross, especially on a daily. And you're not going to get a golden cross on a daily on this chart because it's so young. It's not even got a 200 exponential on a daily. So we're going bit by bit, step by step. 4 hourly's got it. The 6 hourly is now getting it. So most of the time, by about, and again, this is my own statistic, but it seems very common, especially in crypto, when you get a golden cross, you often get dumps into it. So this is only a 6 hour. We don't normally look at this chart, but this time frame, but we'll look at it now. We do have one, and so we should be expecting, I'll be on the back foot, ready for a dump down into it. Now, remember what I said about this chart on the daily. We want to get outside of the cloud for momentum to really shift, and we not just the price, but the Chiku span. So we are talking about coming up to this major area of resistance if we're going to do it now, or over the next 26, 27 days for this to creep out. So that'll be 27 days at this current value, or a little lower for the Chiku span to get out of here. The reason that's important is that gives you a signal of 4 components on the Ichimoku cloud, which would then correspond to another big push up. So obviously that's 27 days away at this current level if we were to do that. So I'm not expecting massive things from it. It's already done. It's already exceeded my expectations in the short term. Long term though, it looks great. There's something that you can't see on Kucoin chart or TradingView. The only place you can see it is on the weekly Kucoin app. And if you were to look at that, we have a MACD which doesn't even appear down here. But if you did see that, it's basically been diverging extremely aggressively since the entire downtrend here. And probably this week is the first time we got our first green positive cross on a weekly, but it's been diverging extremely strongly, and the like I say, you're going to have to use your imagination because you can't see it there, but if you've got the Kucoin app, you'll see it. It's one of the strongest divergences on a weekly MACD that I've ever seen, and that's why I think we're getting some of this momentum shift now. That's largely, I think, a lot to do with it, and this is something I've been saying to people on the Telegram and on these videos, and just in general, this is I look at things based on weeklies because they offer the biggest moves, and that's the biggest. It's the strongest divergence I've ever seen on a weekly, and when you have a chart that's gone down so dramatically with divergence that more or less started, around here, pretty good stuff. So I am expecting very big things from this, but remember, it does come with a lot of risk. So the next area of major resistance, obviously we are looking at one now, gauged from around these levels here, and again we'll just extend this over. I don't want to have too many trend lines on this because it is so we've pretty much ticked it now. This corresponds to resistances here after this this major dump from its all-time high all the way down here. We had a relief rally, which doesn't look much, but it actually is quite a lot. If you think about what we're looking at here, it's close to a 50% move. So that was a big move in itself, and we were rejected, and so we would expect to see a rejection at that level. For what this chart is worth, it does have some relevance to previous supports and resistances, which is why I got in on it around this level initially, and then bought more down in these zones here when I saw that we'd broken out of the consolidation. So overall, I am pretty bullish on it, but I have to say that the move that's happened over the last few days, these big moves that have happened these last couple of days, wouldn't surprise me at all if we got sold off down from here and came down, maybe even quite dramatically down to the 2 or the 2.2 cent zone. The major area of support. Would not be at all surprised to see that, and if it did happen, it wouldn't worry me. It would be annoying, obviously. I'm not looking to get clever on something like this and try and trade it. I've got my allocation, I've got my amount. I'm looking to just see where it goes at this point now. But yeah, that would be my expectation, to see a rejection from here and possibly all the way down to the 2 or 2.2 zone. So like I say, it's exciting to see these moves on these sort of coins, especially when I'm, from what I understand, the only person that's been speaking about it. But that said, I am more focused on the weekly, and if we think about this signal here, it's got a long way to go. It's got 27 days before we can even find that signal, and we have to be above the, well, more or less, if we're talking between now and, we'll call it 30 days really, because the Chiku span, all it really needs to do is break and close above the cloud on a daily. We could come back down all the way down to a 2.1 cent, and that would be fine, because again, that's a major area of support between 2 and 2.1 and 2.2. Again, the weekly is the thing to focus on here, not anything else. It's nice to see these big moves, but overall, the biggest moves should take place on a weekly, and I would expect next month to be the biggest month for this coin, and from next month onwards should be pretty big. But it is reassuring to see that it does have life in it, definitely. because I was toying with the idea of this being one of the worst trades I've ever made for a little while. It was very reminiscent of when I bought XRP in 2016, and I watched that go from 3 cents to basically about 1 cent, and I was like, what have I done here? What have I done? Anyway, we all know where that went, a year later, but it did bring me back, which I suppose it added a little extra hopium to the way I chose to interpret the way that the chart is going. But this chart does show signs of strength of trend on the short term, and the long term, as in like the next 2 to 3 months. I would expect some very big moves from it, even if we were to only come up to this zone here, about 8 cents, 8.3 cents, 8 cents or so. That would be great. That would be a very good trade for me. Do you mean that would be essentially a 4x? So I'd be okay with that, and I'd start to take profit at that level. But I wouldn't be all out. That would be my first major exit point around 8 cents, and that's because this chart does like to show, for what it's worth, it does like to correspond to supports and resistances, and that's why we've got this one and this area mapped out. This area would be our next area of possible resistance. It's also the top of the cloud. Spent a lot of time around here, and so that area comes in at just above 5 cents, and then incrementally take my investment out, just the investment, the amount that I put in, plus a little bit of profit to see me buy, and let the rest ride to see how this one works out. But so far so good, I have to say. Quite impressed with the way that it's shown life, but I don't expect it to continue much more in the short term. I think it will probably get rejected here, and then we'll see where it gets held. It doesn't have to come all the way down to 2 or 2.2 cent or thereabouts. It doesn't have to do that, but if it did, it wouldn't surprise me. Anyway, thanks for watching. Hope you have a nice day. Take it easy.